What was the best moment you've seen where the real world hit a spoiled rich kid? Knew a rich kid whose parents bought a car for and he treated it like absolute garbage. Purposely driving it really hard and generally abusing it. Confident in the notion that his parents would buy him the one he wanted after he destroyed the one they got him. Well, they didn't buy him another one, ever. He rode the city bus and bummed rides off of friends after that. He was the most entitled ducker I'd ever met. If he was over at your house, he would just help himself to whatever was in the fridge like it was some sort of paid buffet. Spoiled rich kid showed up to school in a $325,000 sports car. He was showing off, lost control of the car, and drove it through a brick wall and totaled it. Dad buys a rich kid a Mercedes. It was pinkish, salmon colored, so the kid bitched about it. Dad took it away, sold it, and never bought him another car. Rich brat had to buy his own. Saw a college guy with a ridiculously expensive car. Can't remember the model. Rear-end this woman who drove an absolute beater. Her car was definitely totaled and his wasn't looking that hot either. He got out and started screaming at this woman. She was in tears. He kept telling her that she was going to pay for this. When the cops came, I saw each of them give their statements. After that, me and like 10 people came forward and gave our witness statements. It sounded like each and every one of us put complete fault on him, which was the truth. When the cops went back to him, I saw his face just sink. He probably told them it was her fault and just found out that 2 handfuls of people just confirmed that he's full of shit. I've never seen that many witnesses stick around for a simple traffic accident. I think the other people felt the same way I did. That kid was a douche and should be punished for what he did. One of my college roommates was very rich growing up. I didn't realize just how rich until I had to explain to her what a coupon was in very extensive detail. On multiple occasions she bragged that she wasn't even interested in her major, philosophy, or college in general, but she was at uni because her parents were requiring her to get a degree, any degree, in order to get access to her trust fund. I don't remember ever seeing her go to class and she eventually got expelled sophomore year over academic dishonesty. I guess this was the last straw for her parents because they cut her off pretty soon after that. This actually served as a wake-up call. She somehow managed to get a public health degree at a different school in spite of the academic dishonesty listed on her transcript. She's doing pretty well for herself these days. We've kept in touch and last we talked she was considering grad school. Local business owner puts son through college and more. When kid graduates with multiple degrees, dad decides to retire and turn over business to son. Son brings college cronies on board. Has management all wear white cowboy hats and drive white pickups. Begins revamping business. Dad comes out of retirement pronto. Gets rid of son and cronies. Years later, bankrolls son's run for state rep. The son lost. Dad dies and leaves business to daughter. Here's a switch. Highly successful local doctor politician expects son to attend medical school and become doctor. Son opts out. Gets job with new company called Costco. Pumping gas. He's been with that company ever since. Just his regular pay rises and bonus checks give him a good life. He just didn't want the high stress life his dad had. Oh, I have one. I used to work at Starbucks and there was a girl that was just newly hired and in training. Mind you, she was 20 years old and her parents made her get a job. She grew up in a very wealthy family. On her first or second day, I had instructed her to do the dishes to help catch us up for closing. She looked at me with these lost eyes and told me she doesn't know how. Apparently she grew up with housemaids and literally has never cleaned a dish in her entire life. I had to teach her step by step how to clean a dish, but she learned on the job instead of throwing a tantrum and walking out. About 10 years ago I was having a pint with a friend of mine. His family shitty gold, I swear. I mentioned I was struggling with rent and bills while in college and he just said, "Get your mum to pay for it then, mate. She's disabled and we've never had real money." He instantly realized what he said and did feel bad about it. I think it was the first time he really understood that not everyone has their parents to lean on financially. Somewhat distant relative spent all of his university years and 20s partying hard with the $120K allowance his rich company-owning father gave him each year. He'd travel the world each year, going to Bali, Thailand, Europe. Every year Oktoberfest. Just rampaging. At 32 or so he decided to settle an upscale ski resort area of the US and open a business with his hot gold digger fiancée. When he went to transfer his money to his US bank account, he noticed it only came to a few $1,000s. He angrily asked the bank worker why she hadn't transferred the entire amount, only to be told that that was the entire amount. His father had cut him off without saying anything and he just hadn't noticed. Absolute flatline. While working in a casino here in Las Vegas, a herd of girls came to my window, and one proceeded to tell me about her great birthday party itinerary that her dad had paid for her 18th birthday, with no adult in the party, just a bunch of teenage girls, out in Vegas, where none of them could do anything because none of them were 21. I couldn't even check them into their reservation. They start yelling and screaming at me. I calmly call security, and security tells them they can either go play in the arcade or leave and try to find a hotel off the strip that will take them in without being 21. The anger turns to tears. The security guard is unmoved. That's their parents' fault. A stupid 18th birthday gift. I went to school with a kid who always had a new fancy car or truck because his dad owned one of the biggest construction companies in the area. This kid was a major douche and triple parked his big trucks all the time. Once he got some sort of fast fancy car and went over 110 miles per hour and was getting chased by state police. He had friends in the car that were telling him to stop and slow down, but he wouldn't. I believe he was also drunk. He ended up crashing into a business, doing a ton of damage. He got hit with 3-4 felonies. Driving over 100 miles per hour is a crime in most states, and he got multiple kidnapping charges because the passengers were freaking out. Dude never came back to school and I have no clue what he's doing now. Edit. To clarify, it was on normal street roads, not the freeway highway. Edit 2. My bad, not a felony for driving fast but for the attempted kidnapping. Rich scummy injury lawyer's kid was in my class in HS. Goes to college, mid-size school in the Midwest, and gets plastered drunk. Parents bought him and his friends alcohol since freshman year, so nothing new. And RA says he has to write him up for alcohol in the dorms. Punches 2 Ras. Then gets cops called on him and knocks a cop's tooth out. Long story short, his parents have to drive back 6 to 7 hours after one day to get him, and he's not even allowed to leave the state until his hearing. Last I heard, he's working at a fast food establishment. Freshman year of college. The guy across the hall from me is a spoiled rich kid from a big southern city. Old money clearly coming out his ass. A couple weeks into the second semester, he and a buddy found a checkbook on the sidewalk. Stupid duckers decided to write themselves a check and cash it in the bank that the account is in. The teller immediately called the cops and they both got arrested. We talked the night he got arrested and he laughed and said his dad would take care of it and everything would be fine. That weekend we met his dad as they moved everything out of the dorms since his dumbass got expelled. Guess daddy didn't take care of it. In a country with high alcohol taxation, rich kids enter pub, like 10-12 of them. Throw card at bartender, demanding shots. What would y'all like? Whatever lol. Dad is paying LMAO. Bartender pours double J. W. Blues for all the brats and some randoms that they treated. Brat with card had tears in his eyes when the tab came in. Dad's going to kill me. I did enjoy the free whiskey though. I knew one who apparently couldn't fathom how people live on a budget. We used to hang out a lot at her insistence, but she liked to eat at expensive places, whereas I'd have no issue having my meals somewhere cheaper. However, she kept pouting and insisting I stay. I said I couldn't unless she wanted to spot me. She didn't. I then walked her through the math and showed her that the cost of my meals with her every day totaled my entire wage for the month. She didn't stop pouting, but from then on I could eat by myself in peace. My best moment was when I got hired by a pair of Woodside CA parents to transition their horrible 18-year-old into the realities of real life, something that evaded both of them. My first action was to take away his Platinum Limitless credit cards. He threw a tantrum that lasted several days. Where am I going to get money? Get a job. My parents will fire you. They didn't. When he realized that boundaries and budgets had been set in stone, and that he not only had to pay the bills, the rent, but taxes too, he headed straight to college to wait out the next 4 years. He is still a little jerk, but at least he has a job and an education now. I had a roommate my freshman year of college that came from an incredibly rich oil family from the Middle East. I remember him having the hardest time adjusting to not having someone else prepare him food. I remember waking up one morning and going to the kitchen and seeing him try to eat eggs and toast he had just prepared himself. He asked me how I normally prepare fried eggs because his tasted really crunchy. Turns out he had just cracked the egg hole into the pan and prepared it shell and all. I couldn't stop laughing but felt really bad for the dude. At least he tried. No joke here. Back in high school, 90s, this kid got a brand new Chevy Camaro. I had an old ass 80s Pontiac Phoenix that had the straight six. It was by far not a racing car, but this tool was just looking to brag at what he got compared to the busted cars we got. About 2 days later, while we were waiting at a stoplight, this idiot tries to race us as I am in my car and I pull up with my friends. He starts by revving it really loud and tries to do a burnout. Mind you, the light was red and the roads were not wet, so he managed to get a tiny burnout going. Some smoke and whatnot. When his tires did catch traction, he went barreling into the intersection and smashed the car of the wife of one of the very few cops in my small city. Needless to say, that didn't work out for him very well. There was a kid in my school class who was a trust fund baby and he acted like it. He was picking on people one day, just talking unnecessary shit, and he called a girl a cow. She was overweight. He then got punched by a special education kid in class. And then when he contemplated retaliating against the special education kid, he then got punched by another student who was not special needs. He did not contemplating punching him. I knew a kid in high school whose parents were loaded. When he got his driver's license, they bought him a $70,000 Mercedes. Within a month or two, he totaled the car while driving drunk. Parents pulled strings to get him off the full weight of the DUI. And they bought him another $70,000 Mercedes. 3. He's dead. Jesus, that was a blunt ending. I knew this rich kid from high school that went off to college and partied every single night. His parents found out that he was failing basically all of his classes, so they secretly drove up early one Saturday morning with the spare set of keys to the car they had bought him and just drove off with the car. I knew a guy in high school who bragged that he didn't have to pay attention in school because, get this, his grandfather was a vice president of the corporation that supplied the cardboard for cereal boxes for General Mills. Real gravy train. You know, last I checked, since deleted Facebook, he was still working at Best Buy 5 years after high school. Same job he had in high school. I don't think my father, the inventor of toaster strudel, would be too pleased with this. When I was a teenager, my sister and I saw through our windows that there were 2 guys getting into her car. We ran downstairs as fast as possible and caught them in the act. One managed to run away, but the other one froze and didn't run away. He couldn't have been much older than me. My sister called the cops and the kid kept looking at us and trying to find a way to escape. My sister said, "Run if you want. My brother will catch you." The cops came and so did his parents. His mum drove a ducking amazing car and the lady looked furious and sad. She was dressed really nice and looked like she was pretty successful. As soon as she got out she began yelling, "Why? We give you everything. You have everything. Why would you try and steal? Don't we give you enough?" The kid just seemed to shrink and get smaller. I don't get it. Ducking asshole. I hope he turned his life around and began to be around better people. One of my college roommates told his parents the trip we were planning, that they were paying for, was $400 more expensive than it was, so he could buy a really nice bong. In addition, they basically paid for everything he wanted. He had their credit card and ordered food on it at least once daily. He also would make $50 per cases off the card pretty regularly. Long story short, they found out he lied about the cost of the trip. For whatever reason they still paid and let him go. But after the trip he could not use their card anymore. This dude acted like he lived the hardest life of all time afterwards. But eventually sucked it up. He actually acts way less entitled now. It ended up having a lasting positive effect for him, even though he wouldn't admit it. Kid I knew won a cool million off a scratch ticket when he was 19. Acted like a big shot. Arrogantly buying rounds of drinks for entire bars. Didn't do shit for 20 years. Then got the last check. Alcoholic. No savings. No assets. No skills. He's now in and out of hospitals for alcohol poisoning and mental breakdowns. Lost his paper hat job. His GF. Everything. TBF, if I had $1 million handed to me at 19 I'd probably be dead. That one Instagram model who got caught on video talking shit to a security guard at VidCon. Not only did the guard stand his ground and not let him in, because he wasn't famous enough to be given a pass and too rich to just buy one, but once the internet saw the video the guard ended up with more followers than the kid. Classmate in college failed his course. Partied for a year with daddy's money. Never studied. Ever. Thing is, inheriting his father's construction company, 2 quarries, a fleet of trucks and equipment, depended on him manning up and passing the class. All he had to do was learn the basics of mechanical diagnostic and repair, and be set for life. Middle school. A classmate is on the phone, when most of us didn't have cell phones, screaming at her stepdad. "Patrick, I need the $500. I need to buy new jeans." She did not get the $500, but she did later get to be a teen mum. So that was cool. Edited to ADD. She wanted multiple pairs of jeans. This was when bootcut, skinny, and bedazzled jeans were all equally popular at our school. She was not going to spend the $500 on one pair. Raise your kids and spoil your grandkids. Local rich kid had his SUV parked in a no parking area at a club. Tow truck shows up to tow it away and the kid goes ballistic. "Do you know who my dad is?" etc. to the driver. After a minute or two of this, the passenger gets out of the tow truck and is a full patch Hell's Angel. The biker politely tells him it doesn't matter who he thinks his family is and the SUV is towed away. One of my former friends left his day job to open his own tow truck company. His favorite response to people saying things like that is, "That's your dad? That's awesome. He certainly can afford the towing fee then." Administration and faculty at a university refused a substantial offer of endowment money from a couple that wanted their son enrolled as an art major. Their son couldn't meet the minimum scholastic entrance requirements and he had little aptitude for art. Still, with their millions, he thought money would buy his way to an easy degree as an art major. He was dumbfounded to receive a notice of non-admittance. Cries in German. Nothing too serious. But I taught at an international school in Africa and we would take the high school students camping 1 week out of the year. Many of these kids are not used to camping at all and have never even taken public transport. They have full-time drivers bring them to school and pick them up. Some of them are from very wealthy and politically connected families. Having to set up tents and get dirty, not be able to shower every day, and sleep on hard ground is new to them. Some of them actually love it, but others are sad, pathetic wretches the entire week. Nothing is the great equalizer like camping. My friend didn't realize that people did not have elevators in their homes. Not much of a story, but last Christmas I was with my family and my more wealthy aunt and uncle were also there. Their daughter, my cousin, was about 15, was complaining about how now she has to walk a whole half mile to the train station to go to her snobby private school in the city. Now one of my other cousins is a vet and he lost his right leg in Iraq and has a prosthetic below his knee. I don't know if she knew that, but somewhere in her rant he just looks at her, pulls up his pant leg, and doesn't say anything. She shut up after that, but it was pretty funny to watch. At a Starbucks, and she thought apparently people gave her parents free drinks and such for her all these years. Like the cashier told her the total and she said, "Wait, I don't get it for free." She never realized her parents swiping their cards all those years was paying for her things, I guess. I went to a very rich, predominantly white Catholic high school. One moment I remember was the wind absolutely being taken out of a girl's sails when I explained to her why our school dominated the area's skiing, golf, and equestrian competitions, but never anything else. For a lot of kids in that school, the moment they learned they were rich was the moment they learned that most girls don't have their own horses growing up. I grew up with rich kids and still keep in touch with a few of them. One guy's father owned the most prestigious law firm in town. He said his life changed the moment he called his father from jail. The second time it happened, his father said, "Well, sorry to hear you got arrested. Good luck," then hung up. He said getting locked back into his cell was the singular moment that completely turned his life around. Semester. The semester at sea. It costs $25,000 plus to spend a semester learning about the oceans on a boat that sails port to port. They also tell you no drugs or alcohol. One of my students didn't listen and brought aboard pot brownies. The staff found out 10 days in. They dropped her off at the first port. No credits. No refund. $25,000 down the drain for pot brownies. Story from my dad. When my dad was in college, one of his roommates was a real piece of work, thought he was better than everyone. Thought he was smarter than everyone. Liked to talk about how wealthy his family was. My dad grew up dirt poor in Missouri with a single mum in the 50s and 60s, and he wasn't going to take any of that. Well, his roommate started taking medication that turned his pee green, and didn't flush the toilet one day. My dad saw and hatched his plan. My dad and his other roommates all got together and convinced this guy that green pee was a symptom of menopause, and that he needed to go to the doctor and to let his doctor know he was going through menopause. This guy was dumb enough to buy it and went to the doctor for menopause. My dad said that the look on this guy's face when he got back after finding out men don't go through menopause was perfect. And the guy shut up about being smarter than everyone else. Edit. Probably on the BBC yesterday when Prince Andrew got the shit kicked out of him for an hour about his association with Epstein.